This is the first ever, and it's going to be a lot of fun, Patrick Reusse Unplugged at the Poorhouse with, ladies and gentlemen, from Fulda, Minnesota, the one, the only, Patrick James Stephen Reusse. And our co-host, or I guess the one that's going to be interrogated, he is out of Florida State, ladies and gentlemen, number 7 on his jersey, number 1 in our hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christian Ponder.
I'm going to get this thing closer here. Take out my expansive notes. I think we should all congratulate Christian. He grew up in Texas. He went to Florida State, and yet he made it from Eden Prairie to downtown Minneapolis on these roads.
Thank you. It was tough to do.
You were here last year, but we didn't have any winter. This was your first introduction to winter, sir.
I actually loved it. I mean, being in Dallas, we got 1 or 2 snows a year, and like half an inch was a lot to me. And school was canceled for 2 days. It was 65 degrees the next day. And so this is different, but I love it. I got in a couple snowball fights with my friend last night. And, but it was crazy. This morning, it took me from my house to Eden Prairie to the facility. It usually takes me 20 minutes. It took me an hour and 10 minutes this morning. Yeah. It was crazy.
Well, I told you, the problem is all our 3-lane roads were 2 lanes today, and all our 2-lane roads were one lane, and that's what happens. Christian, Colleyville Heritage High School.
Yeah.
That's where you played football, and I looked it up. They got a 6'5", 220-pound quarterback this year, Cody Thomas, who's going to Oklahoma. What do they do down there? They develop QBs.
I guess apparently, and what was funny, I saw in like the Dallas Morning News over the summer, they were already saying that he was going to be the best NFL quarterback to come out of Colleyville Heritage. So, but apparently he's pretty good, and so I think when I was there was in my class, 2006. There was another kid that was a safety that went to Wisconsin who, I don't know, what was he drinking the day he was committed to Wisconsin. But about that, other than that, there was very few out of my high school that was able to go Division I.
And Colleyville is a little tiny suburb of, 70,000 or something like that?
Something like that. It's a pretty large suburb of Dallas. Yeah.
And there's how many high schools there? Who were your arch rivals?
All right, so Grapevine High School. So I actually lived in Grapevine, but went to Colleyville Heritage. And Grapevine was our big rival, the Mustangs, and also South Lake Carroll, who Chase Daniels from there, Greg McElroy, the backup quarterback for the Jets, several guys who, and I think that 4 years I was in high school, they won the state championship 3 times. So I don't think we ever beat them. So
the Texas high school football, those of us up here, we only have heard about it. I just saw something about McAllen, right? McAllen, Texas, down in this corner. They built like a 25,000-seat high school stadium.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
What was it, like a $25 million stadium, something ridiculous like that? Yeah, I think our stadium was a small stadium, and it sat 12,000 people. In South Lake Carroll, they built, we had our nice stadium. We thought it was awesome. So South Lake Carroll was actually a pretty wealthy town of Texas. Of Dallas, they decided they were going to build their stadium right across the street from ours, and theirs was like 18,000. It was unbelievable. They had a big screen on there, and then they even had an indoor facility that the Cowboys modeled their indoor facility after, and it was ridiculous. And then they expanded on that. Now I think it seats like 22,000 people.
Your daddy, David, was a defensive lineman at Florida State from 80 through 83. How did he end up there?
So he's from a tiny town called Cairo, Georgia, which is like 45 minutes north of Tallahassee. And very few people that live there, very country, very rural.
Yes.
And so grew up there. His whole family's still there, but I think he had offers from like Georgia and Florida and Florida State, and I guess Florida State was terrible at the time. And as a kid, I guess he grew up a Georgia fan, but as a kid, Florida State was so bad they wanted to get people at attendance, so they opened up the gates for anyone to come watch games. So he went to a couple games, I guess, liked it, and wanted to play for Bobby Bowden and had that opportunity. And So he stayed close to home, went to Florida State.
Now, did you get Bobby Bowden to make a home visit, or did you just see him at the campus?
He came to the house.
How was that for Dad?
It was awesome. It was awesome, and him and Kevin Steele, who was the defense coordinator, who was in charge of recruiting the state of Texas, or he was actually the linebackers coach in charge of recruiting the state of Texas, came out, and it was unfortunate. The first time he was supposed to come out, we actually had an ice storm in Dallas, so he wasn't able to make it. And then 2 weeks later, he came, but it was pretty cool. And my one Bobby Bowden story, I think it was the 20th reunion for my dad's team, and we went to Tallahassee. It was before a game during the season. We went to a dinner Friday night, and I got to meet Coach Bowden for the first time. And he actually, I think it was eighth grade. He grabbed my right arm. My dad introduced me. He plays quarterback for the middle school team, and Coach Bowden, grabbed my right arm and said, "Hey kid, hey buddy." He always says buddy. He doesn't know anyone's name. Hey buddy, we could use this one day. And I was dead set on going to Florida State after that and playing for him.
Now, so you got to meet Mrs. Bowden too, right?
I
the
did.
boss of the family.
And Bowden was
famous,
definitely ran that household. She always had us over for I guess when we were in charge of recruiting. If I was a host of a recruit, we'd always go over there for dessert, and she whipped up. I don't know if she actually cooked it. I think she did. Those desserts were awesome, and she was great to be around. I
was down there once and got to. With Coach Bowden, got to make a visit to the sod cemetery where they cut out sod when they had a big victory, and they'd bring it back and they'd bury it in the cemetery. It was great.
It's a pretty cool tradition, and I remember at North Carolina, so we declare usually when we're an underdog or if it's a big game on the road or something, we declare it a sod game, or if it's a rivalry game. So every Florida or Miami game was a rivalry game and a sod game, and I remember I was a person is declared sod captain, so they're in charge of actually getting this piece of sod from the field after the game to bring it back home and bury it in sod, let alone,
Yes.
And so I was the sod captain for a Thursday night game against North Carolina. They had the number 3 defense in the country at the time, and they were ranked ahead of us, and we ended up winning the game, and I was cutting the sod out, make sure I got some Carolina blue in there, and the guy, I don't know if it was a groundskeeper, they were yelling at us that we weren't supposed to be cutting this field, and I did it anyways. So I got that one. So if you go to the sod cemetery, North Carolina, I think it was 2009, I got that sod.
The Gophers might get some North Carolina sod, but they played $800,000 not to play them. So that's a little different deal. So Florida State quarterback, they were only used to going about 11-1 in the regular season and playing in a BCS game. What was the pressure like there to win? It's got to be similar to the NFL almost.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, similar to here. Very high expectations for any team at Florida State, and I think we finished in the top 5 for 15 straight years or something in the AP at the time, and which is unbelievable. I mean, it's unheard of. There was definitely a dynasty there, and so people obviously grew to these high expectations, and we had some years where we struggled, and I think after 2001 it was kind of downhill from there, and so obviously people had the sense of urgency to get back to winning, getting back to BCS games, and the first year I was there, we got destroyed by Wake Forest, 30-0 at home. That was my redshirt year, and then the next year after that, we barely made a bowl game by beating Western Michigan, and then I finally started the next year. We won 8 wins, and then we went the next year and won, I think, 9 and went to a decent bowl game, and then we finally won 10 wins and went to the ACC championship my senior year, and didn't win, but took those steps, and now this year they won the ACC championship. So there was a lot of pressure. I mean, there were definitely high expectations to make sure you win, and obviously those big paying boosters want to see their money being paid
How
for.
big is the Florida State? You got the 3 big programs there. When Stellenberger first came into Miami, he declared everything south of Orlando to be the state of Miami.
Yeah.
And then you had the big Gatorville. How big's the Florida State circle of mania?
It's huge. The Florida State rivalry is huge. I mean, that game's played is the last game of the regular season every year, and there's been some between that and obviously the Florida State Miami. I mean, there was such national championship contention. I mean, one of those winners was usually going to the national championship game, and I think there was definitely we hated the University of Florida more. There's more of a respect for the Miami teams, but we're disgusted with the Gators, and but it was big, and especially for recruiting purposes as well.
Now, how does that Florida? You and Percy Harvin had to chum up when you first saw him. Huh?
When I got drafted, and I took my visit here the day after, and I got to talk to Percy on the phone, and told him, hey, we can move on from this. We can put this behind us and try to work this out.
And you would have played against him a couple of times, eh?
Yeah, we played at least twice, I believe, and he beat us pretty good. I mean, especially him at the kick returner. He had to have had a touchdown against us at least twice, I think, and he was unbelievable to watch.
What we always hear about him, whether it was Urban Meyer at Florida or the guys who've coached him here, or even way back, the high school guys, the instincts he has for the game are just, obviously the gifts, the tremendous speed, but he never cuts into an occupied hole. He always cuts to the opening.
He has unbelievable vision when he's running the ball and when he has the ball in his hands. And just watch him on the field. The biggest thing that stands out to me is his toughness. He's so physically tough and mentally tough. He's getting beat up every game, day in and day out, and he's coming back the next day to get back to work and get better. And just everyone sees his physical attributes and his talents. And one thing that really impressed me is his balance. The guy looks like he's falling over half the time, and somehow he stays up and still, he's bent over halfway, falling over, and still running like a 4.240, and he's crazy.
I think isn't the deal? He still ran the second fastest to Bo Jackson ever at the.
He's unbelievable.
Is he? There was an attempt to create some controversy about him going on the injured reserve. Is he just hurt?
Yeah, he's had that banged up ankle. So it's a deal that, and I had a banged up ankle my senior year of high school, and it's something that if it's pretty bad, it's hard to make it go away and play on.
From everything I understand, he could kind of run straight ahead, but the lateral stuff that's his game, he couldn't do.
Yeah, I don't know. How exactly he's progressed, but it's a tough injury to get overcome, and it can be nagging. So hopefully he's getting healthy and getting back at some point.